One of these days we can have a stripping party.
Today on In the Woodyard, we got 3 trailer loads full of wood, and we've got the elevator set up in the bin. It's time for resplits. Here we go. We've got a trailer right here. There's a trailer right there, and there's a trailer way over there by the processor. So 3 trailer loads full, and I got the rest of the day. Right now it's about noon, and I should be able to go till dark if I don't pass out, because it's hot today. We got the elevator set up. I expanded the bin a little bit, and we're gonna do a resplit, so it's time. Let the splitting begin. So I'm doing a voiceover today because I've been getting a lot of questions lately, and this wood that we're doing right here, I kind of want to cover some of the things that people have been asking me because they come up all the time. Number one is that the 8-way wedge we're using on the processor is doing a great job of splitting 90% of the pieces that go through perfect. They're just fine just the way they are. And actually, if I didn't want this stuff to dry fast, if I had more time, I would let it all go. Even the ones that I'm doing resplits on, the ones you see that I'm setting on the table, they're probably fine the way they are. And in general, what I want to do is have the pieces be no more than about 3 to 4 inches thick. And the reason for that is, number one, I want it to dry as fast as possible. But even more importantly than that, I want my customers to get the size wood that they want. And you can see by how many pieces I'm putting right straight into the elevator to go up into the bin. It's 90% of the pieces. There's not that many that are getting resplit if you look at the volume of what's in the trailer there. And I'm putting most of it right up the elevator. The only pieces that really need resplit is if we've got a log that's, 16 to 20 inches in size, and you get some big splits out of it. And even those would probably be okay. But in general, the size of wood that my customers want is they want to be able to pick it up with one hand easily. So if you need to use 2 hands, it's too big. If a child in the house or the lady of the house can't pick it up and put it into the fireplace, it's too big. And that's kind of what I go by. So I would say if I could have my pieces all be anywhere from 1 inch to 3 inches thick would be just perfect, and it's going to dry fast. Now this is hard maple, which does dry faster, which is one of my favorite kind of woods is maple, because it cuts easy, it splits easy, and it dries fast. You can turn it over fast as far as a business standpoint. Whereas oak and hickory, it takes way longer to dry, like 3 times as long. It's slower drying, high moisture content, and the other reason why I guess I like maple is that it has just as hard maple, that is, has just as much BTUs as oak does. And there's a lot of people that are what my brother and I call wood snobs, where they tend to want only oak or only hickory or only maple or only whatever, hickory. They want that kind of wood and that kind of wood only because that's what their dad burned, that's what their grandpa burned, that's what they have by their house, that's what they've always had, so they think that's the only kind of wood there is. And they don't realize that, like here in Wisconsin and in the eastern part of the United States, there are dozens of kinds of wood that are good to burn. Dozens. Not just a few, dozens. I'm not going to list them all here, but in other areas of the country, there are only a few kinds of wood. Like Ken and I were out in New Mexico about 1.5 years ago visiting our best friend Jeremy out there. Hello, Jeremy. And they have basically 2 kinds of wood. They have ponderosa pine, they call it pondo, which is a lot like white pine. Maybe a little better, but not much. It's a big tree, but it's a pine tree, and the BTUs are fairly average on it. If I remember correctly, it's like 15, maybe 16 on the scale. But then they have pinyon pine, which is a much smaller tree, much more dense wood, and very slow growing wood. But that has a BTU better than oak. It's like 27 or 28 on the BTU scale, whereas oak is like 24. So it's pine, and it's great wood. And then there's other parts of the western states that all they have is pine. They have lodgepole pine, ponderosa pine, and that's all they've got. So that's what they burn. And that's another thing that people don't think about. You're going to burn whatever you have in your area. Within 50 miles of where you live, whatever you have is what you're going to burn. And that's what you're going to think is the only wood, or it's going to be the best wood. A lot of the European countries, especially the Scandinavian countries, their best wood they have is birch, because that's what they've got. Otherwise, they've got pine. They got birch and pine. In Canada, there's a lot of hard maple, which is what this load is right here that I'm splitting. And that hard maple is excellent wood. Now, hard maple is also called sugar maple or rock maple, just in case you want to know. And there's lots of different kinds of maple, but we just call it hard maple here. Great wood. The reason I like it so much is it dries fast. It's not like oak where it takes, 2 to 3 times as long to dry. Generally, maple, whether it's soft maple or hard maple, you can cut it, split it, and it's dry in 3 months. If you cut it from dead standing, it's going to be dry in a month or 2. If it's green wood, and like in the spring of the year when the bark comes off very easily, you're going to have a lot less bark on it, which is basically like skin. That wood will dry really fast. And if you have good drying conditions, which is what I have here at Bert's place on the farm, or as a lot of people like to call it, Bertlandia, it's excellent for drying wood because there's no shade. And it's basically on the crest of it's not a hill so much, it's just a high spot on the property. And there's no trees except for the ones you see just behind the snowman back there. And that's probably, I don't know, I'm just going to guess 400 yards away. That's like the closest trees. And there's a couple by the barn, I guess. But there's really no shade. So because we're at a high point there, because there's no shade, we get sun and wind all the time. And as Bert likes to say, the fan is always on. Because even if there's a slight breeze anywhere else in the area, if you're up in that open area on the farm, it's always windy. Almost always windy. So it's a great area to dry wood. Now, as you can see here, I'm putting a lot of wood directly into the elevators, just going straight up. And I basically just grab it, and if it feels light, I throw in an elevator. If it feels thin, I throw in an elevator. If it's a little heavier, I'll split it down in half, and then it goes. And see, like that one there's a little bit bigger. But even that size, if I wasn't wanting this stuff to dry fast, that would probably be just fine for everyone. I mean, to have some bigger ones and some smaller ones. But like I said, most of the people I sell wood to are burning it in a fireplace. They don't want big, huge, monster, all-nighter, boiler-sized wood. When I first started selling wood, my customers would ask me, does this need to be split smaller? Will this burn? Do I need to split it? Is all your wood this big? And I didn't realize, because I grew up heating with wood, and the wood in my fireplace, because I have a bigger firebox in my fireplace and in the backyard where we burn, size didn't really matter to me. I was like, no big deal, I'll just put it in. And I had a variety of sizes, but a lot of bigger stuff. And I was leaving it bigger, but I would dry it for a year, 2 years, because I had the time, because I wasn't selling it. But now that I'm selling it, and now that I'm having people that want it for a small firebox in their fireplace, or for a wood stove that is a high efficiency one, they don't want big chunks of wood. They want to be able to see the flames, they want to be able to enjoy the wood. So one of the guys that I sell to has a high efficiency stove, and he told me he likes the smaller pieces because he can pack the stove tighter with smaller pieces than he can with a couple big ones. He can get in 5 or 6 pieces of the size wood I have, and it fills the firebox way better than just 2 big chunks. And he said it burns just as long. All you got to do is damper it down. So that's something to think about. So like I said, a lot of people think that whatever they have in their area is the best wood, and whatever size wood they burn is the size all wood should be. Just remember, it doesn't have to be that way. You can burn whatever you want, whatever you have in your area. All wood burns, Yes, some wood is better than others. Fortunately for the people in the eastern part of the United States, they have a wide variety of woods to burn. I think in Wisconsin alone we've got like 4 dozen different kinds of wood that I know of, and there's probably more. I'm not going to name them all, but there's several kinds of oak, there's different kinds of maple, there's different kinds of birch, there's a lot of different kinds of pine trees, there's a lot of different nut trees. In general, the nut trees are your better hardwood. They're more dense and slower burning wood, which is why a lot of people like oak, and they like hickory, and they like bitternut, and they like pecan, and they like almond wood. Any of the trees that produce nuts are generally pretty darn good firewood as far as hardwood. And then as far as softwood, like I said, if you're in an area where that's all you've got, that's what you're going to burn. I know in Canada, this hard maple, the stuff I'm splitting right now, is probably the #1 favorite kind of wood there is. They're big with maple syrup, that's the kind of trees that produce the maple syrup. And that's what they have a lot of, so that's what they burn. So all wood burns, all wood is good wood. And the reason I like this maple is it dries fast and it puts out a really nice amount of heat. So I'm just going to keep working on this trailer here, and I think, if I remember correctly, I haven't watched all the footage on this video yet, I just started, but I think we're going to empty out 2 or 3 trailers here today, and we're going to make the bin a lot bigger and get the trailers opened up so we can fill them again with wood from the processor. So using the Ultra here, just to splitting the wood, and just keep that thing just moving. It's much slower by yourself, but here we go. So I was just spudding along like a happy little boy, and all of a sudden the elevator stopped. And I look up at the top, because usually that's the first place you get a jam, is up at the top. You'll have a piece that'll go around the back side and get caught. But I kind of can see through a crack right in here. You can't see it with the camera, but there's a chunk in here. I just loosened this up. This is the clean out right here, and it is unplugged. Nothing's plugged in. Just got to get this out of here. I can see the chunk. Yep. Right here. It's right on top of the chain. There it is. So you can see right there where it got caught on one of the gears right there, and then underneath here. I think that's what it is. It's the only piece I could see, so must have got down inside of there somehow. So we'll put it all back together and start her up again and see if that's it. I think it's just that one little chunk is all it was, because I went up on the belt and I pulled the belt both directions, and it wouldn't go either that way or that way. I could move it about a foot or so. But I think I got it, so we'll see what happens here. Now I'll put this back on, get it in there. There we go, that's nice and tight. So now I'm going to start the generator back up and plug her in and see what happens. Got the fancy on-off switch here. Yep, she's working. That's all it was. Okay, back to work. There it is. This load is empty, and Bert just pulled in with a little Christmas present. He's got a good contact with a place where we can get some supplies for the Woodyard here that are pretty awesome, and he went and picked up a load of goodies. How many you got on?
32.
32?
Yeah.
That's a good load.
He had one more. I thought about strapping it on the nose, but he said it'll be there for the next load.
Yeah, nice. And these are Bob Barker priced. The price is right. Harder than a skid loader, isn't it? Just a bunch of totes.
One of these days we can have a stripping party.
Stripping party where we
Yeah, we'll strip all these bladders out.
Oh yeah. So my sound guy forgot to turn his mic on, and so now I'm doing a voiceover, and we had a little breakage here. We broke the bolt on the handle for the splitter. Found the valve. So that's the third time now I broke it, but like I said, I've got thousands of cords of wood through this. So Bert went into the barn, he found a big old bolt we're going to put in there, and then I'm going to put the handle. That's just a piece of PVC pipe that we put over the top of it and then tape it on so the handle's bigger, so it's not just a little bitty skinny top. And that's what I did before too, and we just put a bolt in there. So it's just a threaded hole that it goes into. And over here I realized that Mike had put a screw in there on the gland so that it doesn't back out anymore. And Mike was there working that day, and he had told me he had done that, and I didn't even notice it. He used to be a mechanic for hydraulics, and so, hey, look at that, we got it fixed. I went and stacked some nuts on there so we could tighten it up really good, and it's got a nice big handle on it. I taped it, and it works really good. So yeah, I broke it off, and that's like the third time we broke it now. So it's time to get back to work. Bert's moving the trailers around, and I got one trailer done, and now he's going to go bring me another trailer. And you can see Mike over there to the side working. He's cutting some big chunks of wood. And so we got another trailer in place, number 2. We're going to get to work. So There's another load in the bin. So I think now in this bin there's 8 loads, I think, somewhere around there, which means there's probably getting close to 16 full cords, because there's about 2 full cords per load, so something like that. There's a bunch. It's a good start. It's we're getting it kind of peaked. I'm gonna try to peak it as much as I can in the middle so it's tapered off on the sides, but it's getting there. And I think that's about all we're gonna do for today, because it's getting really hot out here. It's like 93, 94 degrees. And everybody's like hot. But we had all 4 of us going on this for a little while at the end, and that's fast, man. All I did is kept the lever going. I was just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I was afraid that thing was gonna start on fire from friction, because the push plate was just in and out steady there. It was really going, and the new lever that I put on up nice and high is working good, so I got that done. So tomorrow when you come back, I think we're going to process some wood, so we'll see you then. 5:30 a.m. I'm going to be here, you're going to be here. Right now you're going to go watch some more videos. That's the best thing you can do to help me if you like these videos, because the more you watch, the more I'm going to do. Good night, Irene.